What if everything you think you know about money is a carefully constructed illusion? You earn it, you save it, you spend your life chasing it. But the truth is, money hasn't always meant what you think it does. In fact, the money in your pocket is the end result of a centuries-long experiment, one engineered by kings, bankers, and politicians who learned how to turn trust into power and debt into control. The story of money isn't about gold, silver, or paper. It's about belief, and how that belief has been shaped, manipulated, and sometimes weaponized to serve those at the top. So how did we get here? How did the very idea of money, something that once represented value, become a system of infinite debt, digital ledgers, and invisible masters? This is the hidden history of money they don't want you to remember. Our story begins thousands of years ago, long before coins or cash. In ancient Mesopotamia, around 3000 BC, farmers and merchants used clay tablets to record debts and promises. These weren't coins or bills. They were trust systems backed by temples and kings, the earliest form of centralized accounting. Here's the first twist. Money wasn't invented to trade goods. It was invented to track obligations, to manage who owed what to whom. Debt came first. Money was just the tool to measure it. As empires grew, rulers realized something powerful. If you could control the medium of exchange, you could control the people. Coins stamped with a king's face weren't just metal. They were propaganda, a physical reminder of authority. The Roman Empire perfected this funding wars by devaluing coins, mixing precious metals with cheap ones, and forcing citizens to accept them as equal value. Every empire that followed learned the same lesson. Money isn't just about trade, it's about trust and control. Fast forward to medieval Europe. Trade is booming, gold is flowing, and merchants need a safe place to store their wealth. Enter the goldsmiths, early bankers who offered to keep gold in their vaults, issuing paper receipts in exchange. Those receipts soon began circulating as money themselves, easier to carry, easier to trade. But then came the quiet revolution. Goldsmiths realized most people never came to claim their gold. So, they started lending out more receipts than gold they actually had. It was the birth of fractional reserve banking, creating money from nothing but promises. For the first time in history, money supply could expand at will. This system spread rapidly. By the 17th century, the Bank of England institutionalized it, printing notes far beyond its gold reserves to fund wars and empire. And behind every royal decree or colonial expansion stood the same engine: debt creation through private banks. But here's the dark secret. Governments themselves became dependent on the very banks they chartered. The more they borrowed, the more power the banks gained. It wasn't kings who ruled the world anymore. It was creditors. The illusion held as long as people believed their paper was worth something real. But every illusion eventually cracks. In 1929, after decades of speculation and debt-fueled growth, the global economy collapsed. Banks failed, savings vanished, and faith in money itself was shaken. The world demanded reform. Reform came, but not the kind most people expected. In 1944, at the end of World War II, world leaders met in Bretton Woods, New Hampshire. There, they created a new system. The US dollar would be pegged to gold, and every other currency pegged to the dollar. It was stability, they said. A new beginning. But beneath that promise was a flaw. The US could print dollars, and foreign nations had to trust it had enough gold to back them. By the late 1960s, it didn't. America had printed more money than gold could support to fund wars, welfare, and expansion. And so, in 1971, President Richard Nixon made a decision that changed history forever. He closed the gold window. From that moment on, the dollar and every major currency on earth became fiat money. Backed by nothing but government decree and public belief, money was no longer real. It became pure abstraction, numbers in a ledger conjured by keystrokes. The consequences were immediate and invisible. Without the anchor of gold, money supply exploded. Governments could spend endlessly borrowing from the future to pay for the present. Inflation soared. The value of wages stagnated. The rich who owned assets got richer while everyone else paid for it through higher prices and silent taxes. In 1971, $1 could buy what now costs over $7 today. But here's the real kicker. global debt didn't just grow, it multiplied. By 1980, total global debt was around $11 trillion. By 2025, it has surpassed $315 trillion. That's more than 3.5 times the entire world's annual economic output. Every government, every corporation, every household drowning in credit, and yet the system demands more debt to keep functioning. Why? Because in a world where money is created as debt without borrowing, there is no money. It's not a glitch, it's the design. Now, as we move deeper into the 21st century, the illusion continues. Just more digital, more abstract, and more controlled. Central banks print trillions with a few clicks. Calling it quantitative easing, private banks multiply it further through loans. And you, the worker, the saver, the taxpayer, are left with the debt. But the pattern isn't new. It's the same story told in a different language. Create money from nothing gives inflate the system, gives transfer wealth upward, reset the game. Cryptocurrency tried to break the pattern, decentralized, finite, beyond control. But even that is now being absorbed and regulated by the same powers that built the old system. And as digital currencies evolve, the next phase is already here. Central bank digital currencies, programmable money, trackable money, controllable money. If fiat was invisible chains, digital currency could be steel ones. Every time in history money detached from real value, collapse followed. Rome's debased coins, France's paper, assignats, Weimar's wheelbarrows of marks, Zimbabwe's trillion-dollar bills. Each time elites escaped with assets, land, gold, power, while ordinary people were left with paper. And yet, we keep repeating the same mistake. Why? Because the illusion of prosperity is comforting. Debt feels like wealth until the bill comes due. Today, global markets are more interconnected, more leveraged, and more fragile than ever before. One shock, one loss of confidence, and the entire system could seize. The hidden history of money may soon become the hidden future of collapse. So what can we learn from all this? First, money is not value, it's trust, and trust can be broken. Second, every financial system built on infinite debt eventually implodes. It's not if, it's when. Third, real wealth has always been about ownership of skills, assets, and independence, not numbers on a screen. The story of money isn't over. It's still being written by you, by me, by the next crisis. And the question now isn't who controls the money, it's who controls the story about money. Because once you understand the story, the illusion loses power. If this video opened your eyes to how money truly works, don't let it stop here. Dig deeper, question everything, and share this story before it gets buried again. Because the past doesn't just repeat, it compounds. And the next chapter of money's hidden history is already being written. Subscribe for more deep dives into money, power, and the hidden systems shaping our world.